Hey, welcome to our explainer. Today, we're diving into a really powerful learning method from one of the greatest physicists ever, Richard Feynman. It's all about helping you truly get a grip on complex stuff. And it starts by tackling a super common, really frustrating feeling.
You know the drill, right? We've all been there. You read a whole chapter, you're nodding along, everything seems to make perfect sense, but then someone asks you about it, or you try to explain it to yourself, and poof, nothing. The words just aren't there. Well, that gap between recognizing something and truly knowing it, it actually has a name.
And that name is the illusion of knowing. Now, let's be clear. This isn't some personal failure. It's not a sign that you're bad at learning. It's a trap that all of our brains naturally fall into. It's that huge difference between just being familiar with a topic and actually deeply understanding it.
So here's the key difference. Recognizing a term or a concept is totally passive. It's just familiarity kicking in. But to explain it, that takes active knowledge. You have to be able to rebuild the idea from scratch, in your own words. If you can't do that, you're caught in this illusion.
Okay, so how do we pop this illusion? The answer comes from the man himself, Richard Feynman. He was this absolutely brilliant physicist for sure, but maybe, just maybe, he was even more famous as the Great Explainer. His secret was this beautifully simple method for just cutting through all that mental fog to find real, solid understanding.
So, the Feynman technique. Think of it less like a study method and more like a diagnostic tool for your brain. It's all about doing a little audit on yourself. It forces you to get past that feeling of wanting to look smart and actually find out where you're not so smart. By trying to teach something in really simple terms, you instantly shine a spotlight on all the hidden gaps in your knowledge. And this quote, this is basically the whole philosophy right here. It's perfect. Using complicated words and jargon can often be a way to hide the fact that we don't quite get it ourselves. But true mastery, that's when you can take a really complex idea and just boil it down to its simple, elegant core. So you might be wondering, how does this actually work? What do I do? Well, the absolute beauty of this technique is how simple it is. It's a four-step cycle that seriously anyone can use for any subject they want to learn. The process is just so straightforward. First, you try to teach the concept, maybe to a friend or just to a rubber duck on your desk. And wherever you get stuck or hesitate or use a vague term, that's it. That's your gap. Then you go back to your book or video, but only to fill that one specific gap. Then you come back and try explaining it again, but better. That loop is everything.
And I really want to hammer this point home. This is a cycle, not a checklist you do one time. You keep repeating the loop. You explain, you find the weak spots, and you refine. And each time you go around, your understanding gets deeper, your explanation gets clearer, and you start to build real, earned confidence.
All right, enough with the theory. It all sounds good, but let's actually put this thing into practice. The best way to really get the technique is to just see it in action.
So, for our example, let's use the internal combustion engine. I mean, it's a concept most of us have heard of a million times, but it has a lot of, well, literally a lot of moving parts. So let's pretend we've got a blank sheet of paper in front of us, and we're going to try to explain it.
So this is a pretty typical first shot, right? It's not wrong exactly, but it's fuzzy. It's super vague. It gets the big picture, but the how is totally missing. And as you say this out loud, you can probably feel yourself starting to get a little uncertain. You're heading straight for a knowledge gap.
And there it is. That's the moment. You get to the part about pistons, and you stop and think, wait a second. How does the fuel even get in? And how does the exhaust get out? And you realize you completely glossed over the valves. Bam! You've just found a critical gap in your understanding.
So what's next? Well, you don't go back and reread the entire book on engines. No way. You do a targeted surgical search. You look up specifically how do valves work in an internal combustion engine. You focus only on plugging that one little hole in your knowledge.
And just look at the result of one single cycle. You go from that fuzzy idea on the left to this crisp, confident explanation on the right. Now you understand the sequence of events, the intake, the compression, the exhaust. You've turned a random list of parts into a simple, coherent story.
So as you keep repeating this process, you're not just memorizing. You're forging a really powerful, durable understanding.
You are literally building a mental model from the ground up, piece by piece. So why is this so incredibly effective? Well, instead of just passively rereading your notes, it forces you into active recall, which is way more powerful for building strong connections in your brain. It acts like a spotlight, revealing all the weak points you didn't even know you had. This builds real confidence, and maybe most importantly, it helps you turn a bunch of complex facts into a simple story you'll actually remember.
And that is the journey this technique takes you on. It guides you from that frustrating illusion of knowing all the way to a place of genuine, unshakable mastery. And it's all done by applying one simple, methodical cycle over and over again.
So the only question left for you is, what are you going to master first? Pick a topic, any topic. Grab a piece of paper and just start explaining. Remember, the gaps you find, they are not signs of failure. They're the first step on your path to real knowledge. Thanks for joining this explainer.